Hey there, I'm Lee from Play Guitar Academy. I help frustrated guitar players get back to getting better at the guitar. Today we're going to talk about slash chords. We're going to talk about what they are and how you use them. This is the first one that on into beginners and early intermediate players, you come across this one and you take a look at it and you think, what's that? When you see it, you go, that looks like it's going to be complicated. And most people, they'll steer clear of it. They'll just be like, forget it. I'll just skip that chord and move on to the next one. But slash chords are really, really easy, incredibly easy. And they actually make sense. You just need a little bit of knowledge. They're just regular chords. And what happens is the first letter is your chord. And then after the slash, it tells you what note to play in the bass. That's it. Right? Not too complicated. First letter is the chord. After slash, that's what the lowest note is. Let's take a look at a few of the most common chords that you might find when you're learning guitar songs in slash chords. The one that comes up the most in my lessons is the D over F sharp chord. And looks a little bit like this. This is a chord that's frequently found in songs where you go from like G and then you go to E minor. See what I just did right there? I went from, actually worked my way up from E minor, D over F sharp, and G. And you hear it the other way too, G. Okay, you can see F sharp on the low string. And since we know that the guitar has an E string on the low and an E string on the high here, we can, if we can do it on the low string, we can do it on the high string. Well, look what happens when I move that up to the high string. It's our regular D chord. Pretty much we just took this top note, which is an F sharp, and we moved it down to the bass. I'm not playing my high E string, just my D, the F sharp, and the bass. Now, what we're talking about, we're going to talk about in a minute, having a walking bass line, which is what we're doing here. But you can see how it transitions very nicely. It doesn't sound like a blocked chord. It has a nice line that goes down. And if you're doing a fingerstyle guitar, especially, you're doing not in a full band, it's a really, really nice way to go. Let's take a look at another common chord that you see written as a slash chord. So here's our regular A. And one of the places that you'll find an A with a slash chord in is with a C sharp in the bass. You can see here, we're gonna have an open A string on a regular A, and then when you add your C sharp, that's the 4th fret on the A string, it covers up that A. You can't hear the low A note anymore. I hear these a lot, A going to D, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute too. So when you're going from a 1 chord to a 4 chord, and we're going to get into how this works in a few minutes. What we're doing with both these is we're replacing our root note with another note. And this brings me up to the topic of inversions, right? What's an inversion? You've heard of a chord in first inversion, second inversion, third inversion. And an inversion is pretty much the same thing as a slash chord. It's a chord that uses another note, another one of its notes as the bass note. First inversion uses the third note of the scale. So you can make an argument that this A is in third inversion, in first inversion. The third note is in the bass. And where we get that, if you haven't had much chord theory yet, chords come from scales. And basically, you get your chord notes from every other note. So if you were going to build an A chord off of an A major scale, you take the first note, the third note, and the fifth note. Those are your chord notes right there. So that's why we call this as the third. Second inversion would use the fifth note of the scale. So in A, the fifth note is an E. You played your low E. You can make an argument that that would be in second inversion. Third inversion uses is seventh chords. That's where the seventh note of the scale would be in the bass right there. I try not to use the word inversions too much for the guitar, and here's why. When you take music theory classes, sometimes there's some very strict theory rules about the order of the notes of a chord for first inversion, third inversion, fifth inversion. You'll see the chords written stacked, where on a note you see a C. Let's do a C major chord, a C, an E, and a G. Right? That's our 1, 3, 5. And then to get to first inversion, it's typically thought you take the root and move it up an octave, and that leaves the third as the lowest note. Problem with that, well, in piano, it's very easy to do because everything's laid out very plainly on the piano. You can stack those notes exactly how you want them. But on the guitar, because of the way our strings overlap, it's not easy to voice a chord with 1, 3, 5, in order like that. It just doesn't work that way very well without some really, really big stretches on the guitar. So most of the chords that we learn on guitar are out of order. The notes are mixed up. You might have 1 on the bottom and then 5, and then 3 after that, or a double of 1, and then another 5. There's doubles of notes. They're jumbled up. We'll take on guitar. We'll take any chord note that we can get that's close to where our hand is there. So that's why I prefer to use the term slash chords instead of inversions, because slash chords, the meaning basically it means you can put any note that you want after the slash, and that's your bass note, whether it's a chord note or not a chord note, any note that you want for when you see that in a song. So I'm playing a D triad with a D in the bass, then I'm playing a G triad but keeping a pedal tone, a D in the bass, and then an A triad. Think of it like the drone note in like a bagpipe player. You ever see that they have one note that's going all the time, and then they play all the other music on top of it. So let's take this A triad here. So the key of A, we have an E, we have an A, and a C sharp. So A, C sharp, E, those are the 3 notes in the A triad. But we have this D going down here. D's not in this chord, but it sounds pretty nice with that D drone going in there when we're using this A chord moved around a little bit. You would see that A/D. So that would be an A chord with a D in the bass. D's not in the key, but it tells you exactly what you would play. The A over the C sharp. Now, when we were moving from G to D over F sharp to E minor, that's a whole different chord altogether. It's a passing chord, but the A over C sharp is a little bit different. You'll see this a lot where a few strums on A, and then a few strums on A over C sharp, and listen, it wants to go somewhere. That C sharp gives you a little tension. It's wanting to move. It's wanting to go to a D chord. So A over C sharp. It's still functioning as an A chord. It's not any different. And it goes right to that D chord right there. So that bass line is leading us up, even though the chord isn't functioning any different. So when you're in a band situation where you may have another instrument playing the bass, you may want to ignore this altogether. So if you have a music that has a slash chord right there, and there's a lot of low end going on in the bass, you don't necessarily have to play the slash chord at all. You can ignore it altogether because you have other instruments that are taking that responsibility. So when you have too many instruments competing for that low frequency, that same space, sometimes it's best to just leave it out. So you would just play, in the case of A over C sharp, you just play an A chord right there, and it would function just fine. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and also make sure that you pick up my free gift to you. It's my guide to clear sounding chords. It's over at playguitaracademy.com/chord guide. Check out all the other videos in this series, and I'll see you on the next video.